Welcome, yogis. Welcome to your 30-minute yin class. I'm Spencer. And this is Amelia. If you'd like, you can get some props. It's always great to have props particularly in a yin class. If you haven't seen our video on props, please watch that. But we have a block here. You can use a book. You can use a plastic container, anything that kind of has that shape. We have a blanket here. We have a pillow. Anything that's going to fill space is perfect. So we are going to begin in child's pose. And today's yin class is going to be really geared towards the hips, opening the hips, working on the hip joints. So we'll start in child's pose, which is a hip opener, as well as a shoulder lengthener and elongator. We'll just put all this over here. And Amelia has her arms out long. Heels are coming, hips are coming back towards the heels. Knees are open wide here. That's where you're getting that hip opening from. Chest is melting. I'm going to put a blanket under Amelia's chest here just to fill the space. And we'll be here for about 15 breaths. So just begin to settle in. Begin to come to your yoga head, to your yoga mind. Just allowing the body, the heart to melt here. Just getting started in our practice. Beginning to come to your mindful, meditative breath. Letting any internal dialogue that might be going on, just letting that pass through. And setting your intention for your practice of remaining present, remaining mindful for the next 30 minutes. Pressing the hips down, feeling the stretch in the inner thighs, feeling a stretch, the pinch maybe in the hip joint. Taking comfort in your postures, finding the nice balance between the physical, the emotional, the spiritual. Yoga is more than just about stretching, more than just about building up a sweat. It's the joining together, the yoking. That's what the word yoga comes from. The yoking, the joining together of the spiritual, emotional, and physical. We'll take 5 more breaths here in child's pose. Lengthening, elongating, maybe now beginning to sit the hips down onto the heels a little bit more. Final 2 or 3 breaths. Now from here, begin to walk both hands to the right side of your mat. Maybe putting that left palm on top of the right hand. And then stretching that left shoulder. Feel the stretch in the left shoulder in particular here. You're still in child's pose, but now the left side body is opening up, lengthening, elongating that left arm. Really feel that shoulder opening. Really feel the left side body opening, the muscles between the rib cage opening and lengthening. We'll take 10 additional breaths here. Lengthen that arm. Extend. breath is even, controlled, well-paced. Final 5 breaths. Elongating, extending your breathing pattern here, pulling in as much oxygen as you can, engaging your parasympathetic nervous system. Final 2 breaths. And now begin to walk the hands back to the center of the mat, and then begin to walk them out to the left side of your mat, maybe placing your right hand on top of your left. And now you're elongating that right side body, that right shoulder is opening, the intercostal muscles on the right side, and we'll take 15 breaths here, keeping in mind at all times you're still pressing your hips back to your heels. So you're lengthening from your lower body one way and your upper body to in the opposite direction. You're placing yourself in traction here. So you're lengthening the joints. You're opening the spine, opening the rib cage on the right side, opening the shoulder joint on the right side. Elongating the arms for 10 final breaths. In yin, it's all about the lengthening, the extending, the elongating of the soft tissue, the cartilage, the ligaments, the tendons, all your connective tissue. That's where yin is working on. So you might feel a little discomfort with some of these postures, and that's okay. 5 final breaths. But know the difference between discomfort and pain. If you're feeling any pain, you back down. If you're feeling discomfort because of the stretching mechanism, you're in good shape with a yin practice. Final 2 breaths. Begin to walk your hands back to center. And then walk your hands back towards your body. Find yourself in a tabletop position. I think she may have fallen asleep. You're going to turn and face the camera. We're going to move into half frog. But before we move into half frog, I'm going to have Amelia demonstrate full frog. And if you have full frog in your practice or you'd like to go there, feel free to go there. But we're going to demonstrate both full frog and half frog. So in full frog, knees come out as wide as you possibly can. You're leaning down. Now, Amelia's hips and her knees are on the same angle here. And her knees are bent at 90 degrees. So her ankles are directly lined up. And then she's coming down to her chest if possible. Now, Amelia has a very good frog posture, but not everybody has that. So, if this doesn't work for you, bring your legs together and lie down flat on the mat. Notice that Amelia has put her arms into cactus arms. So her arms are as close as possible to the floor. Elbows bent at 90 degrees into cactus arms. To come into half frog, I'm going to have Amelia bend that right knee and bring that right knee up towards the right elbow, as close as she can get to that right elbow, and that is half frog. That's your posture. Now, automatically, that right hip is going to come up off of the mat. So you can either fill that with a blanket. She really doesn't have a lot of room to fill here. But if you have a lot of room under your right thigh, then you can fill that with a blanket or a block. Otherwise, begin to think about pressing that right hip into the floor, into your mat, opening up that right hip joint and elongating that right adductor muscle for 10 final breaths.
Chin on the floor?
Your chin can be on the floor, wherever. So if you have cervical issues, find a comfortable spot for your neck. You can place your chin on the floor, or you can turn your chin to the right side this way and place your left ear and left cheek onto the mat. Yogi's choice. When I do this posture, my chin is on the floor, but for some people that might be uncomfortable for their neck. You can also place a pillow under your head here. Again, filling up the gaps, filling up the space in our yin practice. You feel that in that right hip?
Mm-hmm.
So now the right hip is in full external rotation. The hip joint is a ball and socket joint, and it has lots of different motions: internal rotation, external rotation, flexion, extension, circumduction, which is all of those motions put together. Right now, she's in full external rotation and maybe a little extension for 5 final breaths. Find your breath. Find comfort in the discomfort using your breath. Final 3 breaths. Now, if you have stayed in frog posture this entire time, you can begin to make your way out. If you're in half frog, extend that right leg back. If you're in frog and you want to go full frog and you want to go for a second set, feel free to go there now. Otherwise, if you're in half frog, we're going to bring that left elbow up to the left, the left knee up to the left elbow, and find half frog on the left. Now Amelia's turned her cheek here so that her right cheek and her right ear is on the mat. But again, you can put your chin on the mat, you can lie on a pillow. You might want to fill that spot. If you have a lot of space between your left inner thigh and the floor, you can put a blanket under there, put a pillow under there. Now her left hip is in full external rotation and some mild extension as well. She's also getting a little work in the shoulders here. Okay, so the shoulders are also in external rotation, bringing the shoulder blades together. So just like any yoga posture, we might be working on one particular facet of our body, but the entire body is somehow involved for 10 final breaths. Final 5 breaths. As the chest comes down, the shoulders open even further here. Now she has her left hip is a little higher off of the mat than her right hip was. Okay, and that's a good indication that, it's a good reminder that our bodies are not always perfectly symmetrical. She was able to get her right hip closer to the floor just naturally. So, could be that the hip socket is a little different, the hip joint's a little different. Could be that she's had injuries over the years, even if she doesn't remember them, where there's some scar tissue buildup of the muscles or tendons or ligaments. And we'll take our final few breaths here. Stay with the breath. Final 2 breaths. Now, if you're in full frog, begin to bring your knees back together as daintily as you can. If you're in half frog, extend that left leg back long. Come onto your knees into tabletop. Kind of shake it out, shake it out, shake it out here. Also, when you're in that kind of posture and you're putting compression onto a joint, there's a reduction, there's a temporary reduction of blood flow. It's called ischemic compression. Compression, it causes a reduction of blood flow. That's what the word ischemic means. As soon as you come out of that posture, there's a whoosh of new blood that comes into that area, rushing in, filling it, taking toxins out, bringing new oxygenated blood in. We're going to move into either half pigeon or deer pose here. So Amelia's going to go into half pigeon, and I'll demonstrate deer pose. They both get the same thing done. They're both an internal rotator of the hip. We just did external rotator. So if you're going to come into half pigeon, you can make your way into down dog, or you can just begin to bring that right leg up to the front of the mat. The right knee comes behind the right wrist, and the right ankle comes behind the left wrist. Extend the left leg back long, tense your fingers, take yourself into a slight back bend, and then on your exhale, you're going to bring your chest to the floor with your chest coming over your shins. Amelia's going for a blanket here. She can go for a pillow as well on top. Arms extend out long, fill that space. You're going to feel that pressure in that right hip with the internal rotation. Now, you want to get your right shin as close to parallel to the top of the mat as possible. Now, for deer posture, okay, I'm going to bring my front leg into the same position. But instead of extending my leg long, my left leg long, I'm going to sit down on my right hip and then bend my left knee. So I'm in this position here. Then I'll inhale, and as I exhale, I'll bring my chest over my right shin and extend my arms out long. So they're both getting the same thing done. Right hip internal rotation. The only difference, in half pigeon, Amelia's leg, left side is extended long. In deer pose, my left leg is bent at the knee, so there's not as much pressure on my leg. For 10 final breaths.
Could something go under
You can
here?
put a block underneath, so if her hip is not on the floor or close to it, again, you can put a block, you can put a blanket. Fill up the spaces. Bring the floor closer to you. Better? Mm-hmm. Okay? So she put a block under her right hip, and she has a pillow and a blanket under her chest, and that's perfect. Sometimes people use the props. Sometimes they don't fit for a particular posture or a particular side. Again, internal rotation. So in frog, we were external rotation. In half pigeon, we're internal rotation. We're going to do another internal rotation next, and then a couple more external rotations of the hip. So by the time this 30-minute practice is over today, both hip joints will have gotten lots of motion internally, externally, increasing blood flow, breaking up any fibrous tissue. 5 final breaths. With lack of motion, as sometimes happens to people because of injury or the aging process, people have a tendency to not move as much. What the body does is it starts to lay down fibrotic tissue. And if fibrotic tissue lays down in the joints, that's going to reduce the range of motion in that joint. The less range of motion, the less you'll be able to do, the worse your balance becomes, the more you have to hold on. The more you have to hold on, the less you do. It becomes a vicious cycle. Final 3 breaths. Your hip may be screaming a little bit here. She said, uh-huh. Begin to walk your fingertips back towards your body, whether you're in deer or half pigeon. Step the right leg back here. You can come into a down dog should you choose, and then maybe just shake it out, shake it out, shake it out a little bit. And then that left leg will come forward, so the left knee behind the left wrist and the left ankle behind the right wrist. Tent the fingertips, press up, take yourself into a slight back bend, and then on your exhale, forward fold, bringing your chest in this case towards the pillows. You want to put that block underneath on the other side.
No, this side's loose, sir.
Okay, so she doesn't feel that she needs the block on the left side. Again, different sides. I'll go into this on this side in deer. So my left shin is parallel to the top of the mat. I bent my right knee, bringing my right heel towards my glute. I'll inhale, and then on the exhale, my chest comes over my shin as my arms go out long. For deer pose. Feeling that pinch in the left hip. If your leg is out long and half pigeon, you're also getting really nice hip extension on the right side, elongating the quadriceps muscle and the psoas muscle. Psoas is spelled with a P, P-S-O-A-S. Arms elongated, shoulder blades coming together, shoulders elongated, shoulder joints also an extension here. For 5 final breaths. It is very, very windy where I am today, and as I look out my back door, I'm expecting to see Dorothy and the Wicked Witch blow by any moment right here. The leaves are blowing, the trees are going back and forth, side to side. It's a good reminder that Mother Nature is always with us. Final 3 breaths. Begin to walk the hands back towards the body. If you're in pigeon, step the left foot back, maybe into down dog. Shake it out, shake it out, shake it out. If you're in deer, just make your way out of deer. Get that blood flow from that ischemic compression coming back into the hip joints. And let's make our way to our seats. We're going to move into cow face posture. Face down. I'll face this. All right, so in cow face posture, we're going to begin with our left leg as our low leg. So bend the left knee, and then to the best of your ability, bring the left heel towards the butt on the right side. Then the right knee bends. The goal here, the destination here, is to have both knees lined up directly over one another and touching one another. You may never get there, and that is okay. It took me years to be able to get this far, and I still don't have it all the way down. So, this is a good time to find a blanket, to find a block, to find a pillow, and put it between your knees.
This is my cheater way to do this because I'm not as good as you are. I get up first, get my knees together, and then sit back.
There you go. That works. So, my feet are out to the side. Why don't you fill, here, give me a pillow. I'm going to fill this up with a little pillow here. Just to give it a little bit of support. Now, if you're comfortable here and you feel you could take a little bit more stretch, you can take the heel of the wrist, put the left heel of the wrist onto the top of the right foot, and the right hand on top of the left foot, and maybe press your feet behind you.
I'll not do that as an example of someone not doing that.
And now your hips are in full internal rotation again. Cow face posture. Really feel down the side of the hips. You'll also feel the iliotibial band, the tensor fascia lata, the TFL and the ITB. They come down the side of the leg, the lateral aspect of the thigh. And you're really feeling a stretch here as well. Now, if you're comfortable here and you want a little bit more stretch, you can take a deep breath and take a slight forward fold.
That word sounded totally made up.
What?
What was that? Fascia?
Tensor fascia lata. The tensor fascia lata, the TFL, is a ligament that runs from your hip down the side, the lateral aspect of the leg, and then it ties into the knee joint. Tensor fascia lata. I didn't make the name up, but that's the name. There will not be a quiz on this, by the way. We'll take a final 5 breaths here. Final breath. If you're in a forward fold, begin to make your way up tall. Unleash the legs. Now the right knee comes under, so the heel of the right foot is approximating or even touching the left glute. You can go into it how you did. It's a really great modification.
So I get my knees together first, and then wherever they pop up when I sit down is where they are.
Great modification there, a great way to do that. I haven't done that before, and that makes a lot of sense. Now my knees are actually a little closer here than they were on the other side. So I'm not going to put the pillow in between, but you can put a pillow here, a block, a blanket. Pressing into the tops of my feet with the heels of my wrist. Standing tall to start. And then if you're comfortable here and you'd like to go a little further, you can take your forward fold. Now, if your knees are 1.5 miles apart, that is okay. I see that all the time. Just get as close as possible. If your feet are all the way up here, that's okay also. There is no right, there is no wrong. There's just the practice. If you feel really flexible today, maybe think about bringing the forehead towards the knee or the chin towards the knee. We'll take 5 final breaths. Not bad, huh?
That's very impressive. I'm very impressed. I'm just hanging on.
Final few breaths. And release. Extend the legs out long. Shake it out, shake it out, shake it out. You can sit and feet up there. And we're going to make our way to our backs. So however you get onto your back, feel free to go there. We're going to move into a happy baby. So the legs come up tall. Knees flare out wide. You're grabbing either the shins or the outside of the feet if you can get there. Or you can yoga toe lock your fingers and yoga toe lock your big toe. I don't know what happened to my language there. Maybe rocking back and forth, side to side. Now you notice that the soles of her feet are touching the ceiling. Her knees are bent at 90 degrees, and her ankles are directly over her knees. We're taking her hips into, again, external rotation. So we went frog, external rotation, half pigeon, internal rotation, cow's face, internal rotation, happy baby, external rotation. We'll take several more breaths here. Maybe beginning to pull down on the soles of the feet, pulling the knees towards the floor. Now we're going to take a quick figure 4 on each side. So both knees bend, soles of the feet come to the floor. We're going to bring the left knee up, take the left ankle over the right knee, and then begin to place your left hand through the opening, grabbing the back of the thigh, clasping your right hand, bending that knee, and pulling your knee towards your right shoulder for figure 4. I'll demonstrate it in this direction. Which side do you have? Right side?
My left foot is the one crossed over.
So my left leg is bent, grabbing behind the knee, behind the thigh, or you can clasp here, right below the knee. So you're pulling your right knee into your right shoulder, but at the same time, you're pressing your left knee away from you, opening that left hip. So this is a hip opener on the left, and it's a hip flexor on the right. We'll take 5 final breaths. And release. Soles of both feet come down. Now the right ankle comes just above the left knee. The right hand comes through the opening, grabbing the back of the thigh, or if you have a little bit more range of motion and you'd like to clasp right below the knee, you can go there. And then pulling that left knee into the shoulder while pressing that right knee away from your body. Now, right hip external rotation, left hip flexion. We'll take 10 breaths here. Five final breaths. Final breath here. Release the posture. Legs come out long. Our final posture will be our final Shavasana, but we're going to do this in Supta Baddha Konasana. So, she's going to bend her knees. The soles of the feet come together. The knees come down. You can have your arms down at your side, or you can put your arm into goddess arms, should you choose, as we settle in for our final Shavasana. We'll take a minute or so here. Begin to return to consciousness and awareness. Wiggle your toes and fingers. Then make your way onto your right side in fetal position. And then make your way to the top of your yoga mat or carpet or whatever you're practicing on. Hips should be nice and wide open now. So you can come into easy seated posture. If you have half lotus, if you have full lotus. We'll bring our hands to heart center. Let's bring our hands to our third eye between our eyebrows. We'll take a slight bow towards one another. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you for joining us for our yin practice today, and we shall see you next time. Stay safe.